Imagine buying your first investment property only to find out that the association won't allow the long-term, on-time paying tenant to have their lease renewed by you at the end of the term. Today's tip will help you avoid that very situation by following 3 simple steps. Stay tuned to the end to find out what question you must ask in every purchase transaction where someone else will be occupying the property after closing, even if it's not located within a condominium or homeowners association. Step 1 when making an offer on a tenant-occupied property is to make sure that the sale contract indicates that the property is subject to a lease or occupancy after the closing. In the most recent version of the as-is contract approved by the Florida Association of Realtors and Florida Bar, paragraph 6B should be checked to make sure that you have an opportunity to review the lease terms to determine whether they are acceptable to you. If you determine that the lease terms are not acceptable, this paragraph gives you the right to cancel the contract and get your deposit back, as long as you provide written notice to the seller within 5 days of receiving a copy of the lease. This is another example of when closely tracking the dates under your sale and purchase contract can come in handy. Step 2 is to review the association's rules that pertain to rentals. Although a current lease cannot be disturbed, if the association has a restriction that states the owner must own the property for a certain amount of time before they can rent it out, then the new owner may be prohibited from renewing the lease that's already in place with the existing tenant. So a thorough review of the rules governing the association is recommended. And step 3 is to make sure that the title company has had both a tenant estoppel and an assignment of lease signed prior to closing. The tenant estoppel gets filled out inside by both the landlord and the tenant, confirming the exact amount of funds being held by the landlord for a security deposit and any advanced rent. The funds will be credited to the buyer on the settlement statement, so when the lease comes to an end, the new landlord can apply the funds for their intended purpose, and the seller leaves the closing with no further responsibility to the tenant. And an assignment of lease is proof to the tenant that you are the new owner. A best practice is to send a copy of the assignment with a letter introducing yourself to the tenant and directing where the new rental payments should be made moving forward. But the question you must ask in every transaction where someone else will be occupying the property after closing is, does the furniture belong to the tenant or the landlord? And if the answer is that it's the landlord's furniture, that opens the door to several follow-up questions, like what their expectations are for removing the property at the end of the lease, and how any damage to the furniture will be handled. To discuss having an attorney help you review an existing lease or the association's rules, send a text to 561-225-2676 to set up a time to speak with me.